What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Awesemo MLB Live Before Lock Show. I'm Dave Loughran. With me, Terry McBride, Tmcb 74. First show we're doing together. Glad to have him with me and glad to have all of you on this show watching with us over the next hour as we break down this 11-game baseball slate. Terry, what's going on, brother?
What's happening, man? Good to be here with you for the first time. I saw this one pop up on the schedule the other day, and I was looking forward to it all weekend. I was like, oh, it's going to be fun. That's going to be a good one. So
absolutely, man.
Digging in with you.
Yeah, the only snag is you live in Jersey. I live in Pennsylvania, and well, FanDuel hasn't made life particularly easy on us this afternoon and this evening or this morning.
Yeah, been a bit of a ride. I mentioned to you right before this show, I just pinged my rep over there to wipe out my slate of entries, and looks like we'll be sitting out again today, but had a really nice slate going. I thought it was some good angles into it, so kind of disappointed.
You know, it's weird, though. My balance is higher than it was before. I'm wondering if they merged my FanDuel Sportsbook balance with it. They never have done that before, but I'm wondering if they merged my FanDuel Sportsbook balance.
That could make a lot of sense. Could be why our region, our geography was, maybe more impacted because we've got the Jersey Sportsbook and all of that. So maybe,
you know what? You just hit the nail on the head. That's got to be what it was. It's got to be what it was. Why else would they have merged? Yeah, that's
and why would it just be here?
I'm actually okay with that. I have no problem. I know some people like to keep them separate, but anyway, FanDuel, well, you had some issues with that today. Fret not, because the MLB Live Before Lock Show is sponsored by another wonderful daily fantasy sports site. You like that transition? Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, man. A wonderful place to get your action in. They got the CSV uploads and edits now, which is not brand new, but been around for a little while, and I know people are loving that. Makes life a whole lot easier, especially when football rolls around. You've heard me talk about it a lot. I preach it quite a bit. I love Yahoo's football product, and there's no better time now than to familiarize yourself with the site, get ready, and take down some top place prizes over there. Not to mention, they've also got some management-free contests, which means everything that you pay in as the players gets paid back out to the players. Catch them in the morning because usually they fill up extremely quick. But yeah, Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports, man, making a push. They're doing great things. Get ready. And I know for a fact that their NFL contests they have some really big NFL contests for sure. But yeah, as they say, make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. Check it out over there. Jump in some basketball contests, MLB contests today. You won't have any issues if you live in Pennsylvania or New Jersey either. All right, man.
I'll hop right in.
So we're not, there you go. So we're not going to get into, we're not going to go 11 games, game by game. It's not going to work. Jake Hari and I did that on this morning's strategy show. And honestly, I think, given the fact that we're just under an hour to lock, we, let's hit on the high points, the important points, the best stacks, some individual bats, and obviously pitching. I want to kick it off though, with I think one of the more important aspects of this slate, Terry, and let you run with it. So, right now, and ownership changes throughout the day, but it hasn't changed that much with pitching. Right now on DraftKings, you've got Stripling as your highest owned pitcher, and it's not really that close. Then Zach Gallen in a arguably tough matchup with Oakland. He's looked fantastic, got the strikeout stuff working this year. Brandon Bielak is also up there now. He has risen considerably. And Griffin Canning. Those are the four guys currently sitting above 20%, specifically on DraftKings. And Yahoo has very similar ownership because they're also a two-pitcher site. How are you breaking down how you want to approach these top four pitchers in terms of ownership today, knowing that none of them are actually in what we would call lock spots?
Yeah, so I think out of the guys that you named there, my two favorites are Canning and Gallen. I think those are our top two guys on the board as far as projection goes. And I like the spot for Stripling a lot, but I don't trust him quite as much. I'm getting better numbers on those two. So I think that's the way I would lean. I think just looking at the DK ownership, I've got the top pitchers tool pulled up in front of me. I think you can get better option there with Hyun-Jin Ryu. He looks like he's going pretty under-owned. He's our third-ranked starter in that tool, only 12.9%. I know he's the most expensive guy out of that tier, but I'm getting a good projection on him. Very good spot against Baltimore there. So I don't dislike that at 9,400. You're paying up a little bit, but you're paying up to be different there. Maybe put him with one of, even Stripling at 7,900. You pay up in both pitcher spots, get a little weird with it. There's some discounted bats on the board. So I think we can do interesting things there. But I think that's the way I would rank those guys. Probably Gallen, Canning, Ryu, something like that, and then the other two.
Okay, yeah, Hyunjin Ryu, pretty interesting spot for him. You're going to have to pay for him, not an excessive amount, really. He's not under the wing of Dave Roberts anymore, which could definitely make things a little bit easier, knowing those restrictions that we saw in LA really did curtail his production, or at least capped his ceiling over the years. But listen, he's a very good pitcher. He's a lefty who can set righties down better than most lefties, which is important. He's $9,300 on FanDuel. He's $9,400 on DraftKings. And then over there on Yahoo, you've got him weighing in. You got him weighing in at $37. The question I have for you though, Terry, is do you have any concern about this Baltimore offense? Normally that'd be a crazy question, right? And I know it's such an abbreviated season that there's only so much we can take away from it. But check this out. The Baltimore Orioles, and the sample size is limited. The Baltimore Orioles are second in WRC plus, ISO, and weighted on base average against lefties this year. First place, the Detroit Tigers. So to give you an idea of what type of craziness we've seen early on. But one stat that tends to normalize pretty quickly is strikeouts, and the Orioles are striking out at only 18.9% against southpaws. Is this a matchup that we say, all right, you know what? Maybe we should start paying some respect to the Orioles, or they've got to come back down to earth, and I'm going to get there. I'm going to be ahead of the curve.
I typically like to lean that way when it's a small sample that people are taking a stance on, making maybe an overreaction to. I usually lean towards, hey, let's look at the career, let's look at the numbers that we know, that we trust, that are kind of baked in. And I'd rather be early on a guy and ahead of the curve. So I'd rather be ahead of the curve with teams taking on the Orioles. So I think that's a sharp spot. It's a good call. They're definitely doing a good job limiting the strikeouts, and they're showing some patience against lefties. So that's something to be concerned about. I think he's a good enough pitcher that he overcomes that. We've seen his quality over the years. He's a 22.1% strikeout guy, really limits the walks, 5.6 career walks, limits home runs as well, only 0.89 home runs per nine. So he's really good at keeping the ball in the yard. You're not going to get those oddball home runs from this Orioles team. So I like his chances of putting up a very good start here against this.
Okay. And hey, by the way, for all of you guys watching, whether you're in our premium Slack chat or you're in the YouTube super chat, hit us with questions throughout the next 55 minutes, and we'll be sure to get to as many of them as we can. Mike Campbell, that's a basketball question, but Mike, I wouldn't say that's a miracle cover for the Nuggets. They covered by 10, brother. Maybe there's a little backcourt violation by Mitchell, but sometimes, you got to get things going your way. Anyway, yeah, we'll get to your question. What's up, Andrew, and everybody else that's in chat? Good to have you guys with us. Jeremiah, my FanDuel account saying they found another account with a similar email address. So when I log in, I get to this other account that isn't mine with no transactions. Well, it could have worked out pretty well for you, as a matter of fact. Just straight hit that withdraw button real quick. But yeah, look, the top price pitchers are to me very fascinating, because I don't disagree with you on Zach Gallen. Griffin Canning, the matchup itself is pretty enticing. He has not looked as good as I think. I think Griffin Canning is better than he's looked, to put it bluntly. Giants do have a 4.4 implied total. I've got some value guys that we'll get to in a little bit that, if you look over some of their pitch information, you look on Brooks or StatCast or whatever, they actually are pitching better. Their ownership should be higher than it is today. But it does seem like a weird slate in that, Terry, there's nobody from top to bottom where you just say like, hey, that guy 100% warrants 35 or 45% ownership on an 11-game slate.
Yeah, usually we'll have probably 2 or 3 standout guys on a slate of this size.
Sure.
But right now, yeah, you're right. Everybody's got warts. Everybody's got something that we can say, hey, yeah, but this, but that. And, you count off a couple strikes against a guy. So, yeah, I think this is a slate to really probably get pretty broad with pitching ownership, unless there's a compelling reason for, in your projections and your tools that you're seeing to really get into somebody. For me, that was kind of leaning a little bit into Canning when I was crunching. I was getting a strong projection on him. I agree with you that he hasn't been showing that quality yet. We think he's a better pitcher than what we've seen. But I think he's got a lot of swing and miss that he's shown. He's shown 3 different pitches with over 30% swing and miss. So he's got good stuff. I think it's a great spot. So I was kind of leaning into that. But you're right. I mean, there are not any pitchers I'm really, really comfy with on this slate.
No, and that's why I think, you know what, let's have a little bit of a conversation. Again, we'll take your questions on monitoring Super Chat and Slack Chat. The Maharishi, man, he's been with us for a while. So whenever I see him ask a question, I try and get there, you know. Does it scare you guys at all that the roof will be open and hot in Arizona? Pitching seems good overall, but these conditions are brutal. So I guess I'll let you take that, Terry. I have an opinion on it too, but go ahead since you're playing the analyst role with us today. Zach Gallen in Arizona against an Oakland team that they do have some strikeouts, but they're also a team that will really make you work. They will walk at a pretty an alarmingly high clip. Maharishi's asking about that roof being open. Does the weather concern you here, despite that humidor?
Yeah, so I mean, a little bit. Anytime we see something like that where it's a little bit of an oddball, changes of park factors, it's in there a little bit. It's not something I really let dissuade me when I'm getting a good projection on a guy that I pretty much trust, like a Zach Gallen. So it would push me more. I would be more concerned about the away pitcher, Chris Bassett, who I'm not getting a good projection on, don't really like anyway. I think Gallen can overcome that. I think he's got enough quality there, but it's a concern. I haven't really dug into the park factors yet to see roof open, roof closed. It's kind of baked into my model, so I don't check it all that often. So I'd be interested in, if you have a specific opinion on, what that might actually do. And, if you've looked at the numbers on the park factors with the roof open, but it's not something I'm going to be too concerned with here.
I'm not particularly worried about it. And one of the reasons for that is, sometimes just take a look at Vegas and you're right. Having it baked into a model, there's myriad ways to be able to figure out whether or not this is, super impactful. Is the roof definitely open though? The temperature is 112 degrees in Arizona right now. I'm not kidding. 112 degrees. That can't be right.
If it's 112, there's no way it's open. That's bananas.
Hey Siri. What is the temperature in Arizona? And fuck that one up.
I think Emax said the MLB is usually right on that one.
Yeah, 115 right now. Degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah. So I don't know. Is the roof? We can look that up again. I know there's a number to call on some of these stadiums where you can actually call it and get weather info on whether or not the roof is open. But
I think Emax said the Miami one is like disconnected now or something. They haven't.
Oh, is it really? Yeah. God, I don't know, man. That usually, if you look at Vegas, if the total climbs considerably, then sure. But both teams have run totals below 5. Oakland's at 4.4 right now. So I don't want to pretend that it's too impactful. But my God, that is really hot. It's insane. Yeah. I saw Death Valley hit 130 degrees today or something like that. It's the highest it's been since 1931 or something. But if you guys have information on and confirmation that it's open, that would be helpful as well. Bassett, to me, he just doesn't do much for me, Terry. I appreciate that he's not a bad pitcher, but are we getting the strikeout upside with somebody like Chris Bassett in a spot like this? What do you think?
No, I don't think we are. He's not a DFS pitcher most days for me, unless it's a completely awful small slate, and this is definitely not that. Even with that lack of true great options, I think we can do better than him, and better than him in this spot. I actually like the Arizona bats a little bit here. I was looking at them a little bit before the show. You've got Cole Calhoun up top, big lefty-righty guy. 111 of his 146 career home runs are versus righty pitchers. 109 WRC plus over that time. Peralta 72 of 86 home runs. Escobar 71 of his 108 as a lefty against a righty. So a lot of guys that I can justify getting into a stack here. I think the pricing is decent. So I'd rather attack the Arizona bats on this one.
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it as well. Right now, stack ownership on Arizona is very low, as a matter of fact, 2%. So you're not going to be getting a whole lot of ownership there. Now, what if we start looking at some of these less expensive pitchers? Is there anyone right now that stands out to you that isn't garnering an excessive amount of ownership? Because like I said, you're going to be competing with a lot of other lineups, and this, look, normally that's the case. 11-game slate. I'm a little bit surprised by this. Like Ross Stripling right now. Before we get into some lesser owned, less popular guys, what is it about Stripling today that has him below pitchers like Canning and Gallen? Because he is 45% projected ownership on DraftKings right now. He's the highest projected pitcher on FanDuel at 22%. And on Yahoo, you're also getting him as the highest projected owned pitcher at 39%. So a lot of people are going to be on Stripling today in what appears to be a pretty easy matchup against the Mariners, who have the lowest total on the slate.
Yeah, and I do like the spot for him. I definitely want to be clear about that. He's a killer in this spot. He's 23.5% career strikeout rate, 5.7% walk rate. So very, very good pitcher. Limits power to lefties as well, and Seattle gets all their power on the left side of the plate. So I do like the spot for him. It was just I wasn't getting him coming up in crunches, and he didn't project as strongly as the other guys for me, just in my model, in just looking at him. So I was kind of getting away from, he was 21.9% ownership on FanDuel the last time I saw. So I was just kind of moving away from a spot that wasn't really projecting as strongly as the other guys for me, where I was picking up advantage with the other couple pitchers there. It's not really not liking him. I would lean into him a little bit if he's popping in models. So it definitely nothing to shy away from in this matchup for him. So it was really more an ownership thing than anything else.
Okay. Yeah, by the way, so confirmed that the roof is open. A couple of people made a point that I probably should have referenced earlier. It is a dry heat. You're right. It's not like immensely humid, so that makes a difference. But
yeah, but still, 115 is 115. That's hot.
Yeah, you're fucking crazy if you think I'm living in 115.
Yeah. I never really bought into that dry heat thing anyway. We've all been to Vegas, walking down the strip, baking.
Oh, it's super hot.
Hungover. I mean, yeah,
super hot. Yeah, I lived in Phoenix for a little while too, and it was crazy. I was younger. I was like 19, but I remember in the middle of the night, it would be really almost cold. And then by 10 a.m., it's like 270 degrees. So the swings are pretty wild out there. You and I are in the Northeast, so we definitely get 4 seasons for sure.
Yeah, and we get that sticky, humid summer.
Yeah, we had a comment in chat, in Super Chat, that Bassett went 7 one-run innings against the Houston Astros. Yeah, no doubt. It was a great game, but he still only had 16 DraftKings points. So if I'm paying what I would consider to be a premium for Bassett, I want to know that there's a little meat left on the bone there for him to give me that game I'm looking for. If anything, I'd rather go a little bit cheaper. Let me ask you a question about Touki Toussaint. Hasn't had much discussed about him, and I guess justifiably so to some extent. He has had a couple rough games. He's gone 6 innings in one of them, hasn't gone past 4 in 3 of the other 4. But he actually has shown a couple of things to me that stood out, and I haven't really heard them discussed much at all. So I'll bounce these off you and let you run with it a little bit. So Toussaint is getting a lot of swinging strikes this year. Right now, his swinging strike rate sits at 14.2%, which is a really solid number. And some of his breaking stuff is getting a lot of swings and misses. Not only that, Terry, but here's another thing that stood out to me. So on the season, he has completely scrapped his sinker, right? He was throwing at 32% in 18, 27% last year, 1% this year. So basically not at all. My assumption is that was misclassified and it's probably 0. 4-seam usage is up. That's good to see. Curveball's up. He's throwing a slider now, and his splitter's still at 23%. The splitter's getting 21% whiffs. The curve's getting 21% whiffs. Sorry, 22 and 21. You get 15% on the slider. So a couple of those pitches have been tuned up pretty good. Not going to ignore the slider getting hit pretty hard. But it does seem that he's missing way more bats than we've seen him do in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a good sign, for a kid that we're watching grow, and that they're kind of giving a little bit of room, partly because they don't really have a choice with the injuries that rotation's taken. He's a kid that, I've mentioned this about a couple different kids that we're seeing pitch right now. I think probably in a normal season without those injuries, in a normal 162-game season, he's still probably getting some seasoning. Maybe he's on the back end of the rotation, not a featured pitcher, but we're seeing him get like a featured role in this rotation. I think he's going to be good. I totally agree. You nailed like all the notes I had written down about that breaking stuff. He's throwing a great differential between his 94-mile-an-hour fastball, and then he brings it down to a 76-mile-an-hour curveball that you mentioned, this incredible swing and miss he's getting with it. So love the breaking pitches. He's got a nice mix of stuff. I like that he's able to make changes like scrapping that sinker and adding a slider. And the slider's an effective pitch that he's throwing 13% of the time now, just kind of out of the clear blue. So yeah, I really like the kid and the ability. I don't know that I love him in this matchup. I don't get the greatest projection on him. Only 7,100 on FanDuel. I think you can justify a few shares of rolling him out there if you want to grab some savings with a kid who's got upside. 77 on DK, kind of the same thing. But I like the Nats. I like the bats that they have to offer. So not the greatest spot in the world for me.
Yeah, it's not. I really thought Washington would have a higher total, but they don't. Right now, Atlanta's got a 5.9 implied total. Washington at 4.7. So Braves pretty big favorites here.
Yeah.
That was a little bit surprising. Have a 1.2 implied total advantage over the Washington Nationals. But you're right, it's a tough spot. I do think there is some strikeout upside with Toussaint that's worth paying attention to, though. And he's shown that in a couple games. He's getting a ton of misses, swings and misses, which is encouraging to me. But yeah, a tough matchup. I'm willing to take some stabs at it today, though, only because I just don't see a ton of pitchers that I feel extremely confident in, to the point where, like, oh, if I don't have these guys, I'm really worried. Like, Toussaint could go out there and give you 13 fantasy points and be pretty much right in the same ballpark as a lot of these $9,400 guys.
Sure.
And, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's certainly not one of these days where you have Garrett Cole, Aaron Nola, Max Scherzer on the mound, and it's like, okay, well, this could crush me if he ends up only having a mediocre game, and I think you have a few mid-range and value guys that might fit that brand.
Yeah, it's a day where it's not a mistake just plugging him in and pressing enter on that roster by any means. It's a broad pitching day like we were saying before. So yeah, I would actually, especially on DK, the two pitchers, I would probably have a bigger share of them than I would on a day like that, where there's going to be a Cole, a Scherzer, or somebody like that on the board. So I think, like you said, there's strikeouts in the Nats lineup. Eric Thames on the back end of the lineup, he's probably going to strike out 3 times or hit 2 home runs. That's basically what he does. He's been struggling with his launch angle. I looked into him a little bit. He's still 83rd percentile exit velo, 93rd hard hit so far this year. His launch angle has just been off by like 12 degrees, so he's just been not hitting home runs yet. But that could change in a heartbeat. So watch out for him for some power. Juan Soto, obviously, another big lefty here. So there's names in this lineup, but you're right. There are Ks, so we can justify both sides of it, I think.
Josh Wolf asks if anyone likes Zach Davies. We know he's a good pitcher, minimizes hard contact, but when it comes to racking up, Zach Davies is the kind of pitcher, Terry, that if he gives up 3 runs, you're pretty much not getting what you need from him, because he's almost never going to compensate he's never going to mitigate earned runs with strikeouts.
Absolutely right. I mean, that's a perfect description of him. He's a 16.9% career strikeout guy. Decent with the walks, only 6.8. Limits hard contact, like you said, only 1.02 home runs per 9. Throws moderately effective 2-seam sinker, changeup, a cutter. Doesn't generate a lot of swing and miss. Doesn't get those strikeouts. So you're right. If he gives up a few hits, couple runs, you're basically shooting that start in the foot. And it's a dead spot in your roster. So yeah, I can't really justify him here.
Are there any discounted pitchers before we start getting into some stacks and a couple of other arms that we like and answering your guys' questions? Any other pitchers that we haven't discussed yet outside of, guys like Ryu and Gallen and Griffin Canning and as I mentioned, Touki Toussaint, and any guys that you like that might not be very popular but could give you what you need?
Like is probably a strong word, but I'm getting
any pitchers you're willing to take a stab at.
I'm getting an okay projection, surprisingly, because I wrote up the other side on the offense. But Jordan Yamamoto, I'm getting a sneaky, weird little projection on it. He costs like nothing.
Yeah, talked about him a lot this morning as well. He's actually he kind of does pop a little bit on a slate like this.
Yeah. So he was jumping up there. I haven't checked him in the top pitchers. I'm just pulling him up. So not crazy well ranked in the top pitchers, but it's not completely tragic. There's a big mid-range there, like we've said a couple times, and he's really under-owned. Nobody's going to him, so could be a sneaky little spot. There's certainly Ks in this Mets lineup. They got Jeff McNeil back up top, which is a very patient hitter who limits strikeouts. Great hit tool up there, so that's going to help the Mets side of this one a little bit. We've seen Pete Alonso is hitting 6th tonight. I like him better 5th. I don't know why they're doing that for Robinson Cano, but whatever. So I like the Mets side better, but I think at that price we can definitely justify some Yamamoto. What was it? The strikeouts mostly that you were seeing on Yamamoto? What's
Yeah, just the fact that the guy. So if you looked at his pitches, a lot of his pitches were actually they actually looked better than the results that they've gotten. And I think this is one of those spots where, look, you can't argue against the fact that the guy has allowed 2 home runs in each of his first 2 starts and struggled to get through the games. But I think when you're talking about somebody this cheap, I'm willing to make exceptions if I know that if they do go deep into a game, they can give me the strikeouts I'm looking for. Strikeouts are king in fantasy baseball, right? Once in a while, you'll get that 8 inning, 7 inning, 1 run or shutout game, and they give you 3 strikeouts and it works and they get the win. But so much has to go right in the game of baseball for that to happen. Whereas, with Yamamoto, even last year in almost 80 innings, he struck batters out at 25%. And it's strange because the guy came straight from Double-A, and he had a higher K rate at the major league level through 80 innings than he did in Double-A through 65 innings in the same season. So do I worry that, maybe Yamamoto's strikeout rate should come back down to earth a little bit? Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment to make. And I worry that, if he doesn't start limiting those home runs, it's going to be an issue. But in the same breath, if you're asking me or if I'm asking you, hey, give me somebody that's discounted that actually could have a good game, it would be Jordan Yamamoto. There just isn't a lot of value down there. And that's what it comes down to for me.
Yeah. He was my highest projected, very cheap pitcher for sure. He was right after that tier we talked about right off the top. So, yeah, I'm ignoring the 4 home runs in 7 innings. It's completely unfair. I mentioned it on the show with EMAC last night, with Jason last night. Bottom 1% in everything that StatCast tracks for this year. But, yeah, that's totally unfair because he gave up 4 home runs in 7 innings. So, of course, I'm a little concerned about the walk rate. So we'd like to see him really, exercise some control, not give up those free passes tonight. And that's going to be key in how many runs he ends up giving up probably. They get a couple guys on, they get that key base hit. Now you start racking up some runs. So need to see some control out of him. But yeah, I like the arsenal. It's a little underrated, like you said. He's got a cutter that is apparently generating a lot of swing and miss from what I saw, that he's only using like 11% of the time. So maybe a little bit of an arsenal change. If he beefs that up, he could even pump up the strikeouts. But I'd be curious with that change from the minor league numbers that we saw. Maybe that's illusory, like you said. Maybe it's just the impact of getting to a major league pitching coach who made a couple different suggestions, increased his spin rate. I haven't looked into things like spin rate on him, but that is always a possibility. So it could be a sign of growth. We're not sure.
It could be. There's no question. And it's not like it, there's always exceptions to the rule. So it's not unprecedented that somebody could come up to the major league level and start, like you said, throwing better for, a number of reasons. But, when you start looking at the other options, Bubic against Minnesota, that's tough. Anderson against the Angels, Martin Perez against the Yankees. Hell, I don't care that the Yankees are going to be, without 2 of their best hitters in Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. Now, if anything, I'd almost wish they were in there because at least I know there's more strikeouts. But, you can load this lineup with right-handed hitters, which is exactly what they're doing. The only lefty in the lineup today is Tyler Wade. Martin Perez, by my assessment, is in for a very long day at Yankee Stadium, and I don't have a whole lot of interest in getting there. There's just not much that is going to get me excited, even though he's pitched relatively well. Justin Dunn being another one. I just don't see much down there below 7K that intrigues me at all, or even into the 7K range. Like Jordan Lyles is lucky to get 3 strikeouts in a start, and I say that not in jest, like 100% serious. And Anibal Sanchez has had a monster home run problem this season, 5 home runs through his first 3 starts against Toronto, Baltimore, and New York. And now the Atlanta Braves almost have a 6-run total. So where else are you really going? Someone in chat mentioned Kyle Freeland, but it's hard to get someone like to Kyle Freeland. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. 3 of his first 4 starts have been at Coors Field, and that has to be factored into to our to how we evaluate him. But Kyle Freeland is someone we know exactly who Kyle Freeland is, and he's a good pitcher, like many others on this slate that just don't get a lot of strikeouts. I sound like a broken record, man.
Yeah, but that's the slate we're dealing with, and Freeland's a great example. He's a guy that completely relies on getting ground ball outs with his curveball. So he hangs a couple of those breaking balls, the curveball changeup combo. He already gives up a lot of fly balls on his changeup, already a lot on his fastball. So yeah, that Astros team is gonna annihilate him if he hangs any of that. He could put up a decent start where he just induces the ground ball over and over again and doesn't allow much, 3 runs, but it won't be a big fantasy start. We need fantasy points here. It's just as simple as that. Most of those spots you just named, you rattled off a few pitchers there. I'm on the offensive side on every single one of those spots. I love the Yankees, like you said. I like actually the Red Sox side of that game as well against Jordan Montgomery. I like Monty in general, but he's more a real life pitcher for me. He's like a decent 3rd, 4th starter for my Yankees. He's not a great fantasy option here, and I think the Red Sox can get to him. Some of the other spots you named, I think you mentioned Cobb, so I think he's going to give up a ton of power to the Blue Jays. There's just ugly spots. You mentioned Bubic against the Twins. There's a ton of power in that Twins lineup. He's not a guy that really has earned much trust yet. So, yeah, I think it's a day to spread out the pitching and really try and focus in on getting some good stacks in here.
It's funny. I didn't mention Alex Cobb, but I'm going to ask you about him now that you brought him up. What do you make of someone like him? Because we had a couple questions on him earlier in the day. I figure we'll just get it out of the way now and then move over to some bats. He's had 2 really solid games, 5+ innings, 1 earned and 6+ strikeouts and 2 of 4. And then 2 other games where he was just mediocre at best and didn't really miss many bats at all. He's got an 11% swinging strike rate this year. The problem is you could pull my arm to get me to play Alex Cobb if he was the price of Chris Bubic or Yamamoto, or Devin Smeltzer, but you've got him up almost in the mid 7K range, and that starts to make things a lot more difficult for someone that throughout his career has not been a reliable strikeout pitcher.
Yeah, not been a reliable strikeout pitcher. Early in his career, he was at least decent at limiting the home run ball, and we've seen, last year it's unfair really to point to, but I will. He gave up 9 home runs in 12 innings last year, which completely destroys
was he
my
one
home
that
run.
didn't have spring training because of the weird free agency? Was that him?
I forget what it was. There was something weird with him. It was an injury and then something weird coming in. But yeah, it was a 12-inning sample, and then I think he got.
Oh, is that all
again.
he pitched was 12 innings? Okay.
Yeah. So
I think he was also the guy though that didn't have a team until like a week before the season started. So remember they had that weird spring training where guys that were unsigned because it was such a dead free agency were all doing spring training together in like Florida, in another area in Florida or something.
Yeah, I think the group get together for guys. It rings a bell. I definitely remember what you're talking about. It rings a bell that he might have been there. But I'm just thinking, I think he's been with the Orioles for a few years though, right? Or has he?
You know what? You're probably right. Maybe it's another pitcher that's equally as unattractive as Alex Cobb, but I don't know.
Pitcher. Anyway, regardless, yeah, you're totally right. If he was the $6,500 FanDuel price over on DK, it's more justifiable, save off of what they're asking for him. I think 73 is way too much for him on DK, and I wouldn't pay 65 on the one pitcher side for him. I just don't like the pitcher. I mentioned the home runs last year, but the year before it was a 142 home run per 9 mark over a much bigger. It was like 150 some odd innings. So even when he's healthy out there, he's just not a quality pitcher. He's throwing the same mix of pitches that he was that year: a 92 mile an hour fastball, 87 mile an hour splitter, 81 mile an hour curve. Gets some swing and miss on that splitter, but it's just not a good pitcher. And I think there's just plenty of power in this Jays lineup. I think you get some patience. Kevin Biggio leading off as a rookie last year at a 16.5% walk rate. Big strikeout rate as well, but he's a kid who knows how to get on base, set the table for the sluggers behind him, getting great home run marks on Randall Grichuk. Travis Shaw was my home run pick today. So I just lean much more heavily into the Blue Jays side of that one than the Cobb side.
For sure. By the way, we were both right. So, excuse me, it was 2018 free agency that was like the historically slow one.
Right.
And that's when he was signed by the Baltimore Orioles, 2018. Okay. Right. Okay. So this would be his 3rd year with them. Yeah. All right. Any more pitchers, or do you want to start talking bats? We got about 28 minutes to go. Give us your questions. We'll hit on them as well. What do you want to do here, Terry? I'll leave it up to you. If there's any pitchers, any arms you got left in the arsenal, let me know. If not, we can move over to the hitters.
Not one that I like, but one we should probably touch on, Matt Boyd. What do you think of Boyd today?
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. And we can also talk about Brandon Bilek as well, because he's getting – you know what? Let me start with him, because then we can take Boyd and we can make that smooth transition into the White Sox hitters. So
I like that.
Let's start with Bilek against Colorado. Listen, the Houston Astros have done a very good job with their arms, bringing them up through the farm system, developing them, turning them into aces, bringing guys like Garrett Cole over from Pittsburgh where they had untapped potential, and boom, look at him go. Charlie Morton's another perfect example. Really, pretty much endless examples of good pitchers that they've brought through there. Even Verlander became markedly better and kind of revived his career. But Bialik is not somebody that I look at and say, hey, right now where he stands, at least, this guy is going to go out there and mow through opposing offenses, striking them out at a 1K per inning guy. And you don't always need that, but he is getting more ownership than I had initially anticipated. Does that have more to do with him or the fact that the Rockies are away from Coors and people love picking on them there?
I think it's probably the latter. I think it's probably just people like to target the Rocks when they leave Coors Fields. You're right. He's a pitcher that is probably not totally there yet. I think he's their 10th overall prospect. He's a mid-20s K guy in the minors, good fifth. Give up a few home runs. So he's a good pitcher, but I don't think he's there. And I think you're right. I think people are kind of leaning into that because it's the Rockies on the road. I actually like the spot a little bit for the Rockies. I think you can get away with them here, and you might be a little bit sneaky. I'm just flipping over to them. Yeah, they're completely unowned right now on DraftKings. Pretty underowned on FanDuel. So I think that's a product of where his ownership is going to be. And I think I'd probably rather attack that and be on the Rockies side of things.
Okay, fair enough. Matt Boyd, it's been an issue. I've seen his name mentioned in chat a couple times already, and rightfully so. The discussion needs to happen. I was a big fan of Matt Boyd over the past few years. I always love seeing what guys have and hoping that they can, they can kind of parlay that into real success. And, guys like Caleb Smith, I was on for a while and then boom, came through. And now, I don't know what to make of the guy. Blake Snell, Glass now and still are guys, Terry, that I stuck with forever and looked real dumb for a couple of years. And then I looked like a fucking genius. But it doesn't always work like that. There's a few guys who I'm like, all right, let's pretend I never said anything good about them. Matthew Boyd feels like that right now, and I don't want to go there, but he's allowed. And look, I know earned runs are, to an extent, it's arbitrary. Like, it's not really going to get you where you need to go in terms of analysis, but just on the surface, Matt Boyd has been very bad. He's walked a lot of batters. He's coughed up 4 earned, 7 earned, and 7 earned. Hasn't gone past 5 innings in any of his 4 starts, and it's come against the Pittsburgh team that's won like 2 games. Kansas City is not a particularly good offense. Cincinnati's okay. It was a Great American. I'll give you that. And the White Sox, 7 runs last time out, 2 long balls. They are a fantastic team. They went back to back yesterday against Roel Rodriguez, who will probably never step foot in Major League again. Hopefully doesn't step foot into oncoming traffic after yesterday. But now that we've set that up, what do we make of Matt Boyd? And feel free to make that transition, segue it straight into these White Sox bats.
Yeah, and I think that's it. Like you said, I think that's a good call for a segue there. I think Boyd is more the pitcher that we're seeing now than the guy that we saw strike out 30% of hitters last year.
Interesting.
I was poking around at it. Say again.
Tell us why. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was poking around at it, and before that, he was around like a 21, 22% strikeout guy, and it jumped up by 8%. And the only real discernible change I could find was that he added 2 miles an hour to the fastball and like 100 revolutions per minute, or whatever, rotation revolution, whatever we're calling it, spin rate.
We'll call them RPMs.
RPMs, there you go.
That works.
So added 100 RPMs of spin rate. So that was really the only change. And he was still allowing home runs. He still gives up power. He's a 1.67 home runs per 9 for his career, 1.46 to lefties, 1.72 to righties. So he gives up more power to the right side like we expect. I just don't love the pitcher. If we're getting that 30% strikeout guy, sure. In this matchup, everybody on this White Sox team is projected for well over 20% strikeout rate. There are definitely Ks to be had here. I think we get the other Matt Boyd. I think these guys get to him, and I think they get to him hard. And there are some bats that we talk about a lot in this team. And, they got Timmy Anderson back recently. He's 20 home runs, 26 stolen bases in 2018, 18-17 in just 18 plate appearances in 2019. Great option for power speed leading off up top. Grandal gets more power on the as a lefty against a righty, but still very quality here. WRC plus 13% against league average for this side of the split. Moncada, 11% below on WRC plus in this side of his split, but still a hitter we really like. Still a kid with a ton of talent. Might push some of the ownership off of him. Love the pricing on most of these guys. 2,900 for Grandal on FanDuel is ridiculous. You get Edwin Encarnacion for 2,700 on FanDuel. Even the 3,400 on Eloy, 3,000 on Abreu. Killer pricing on FanDuel. Their pricing is just broken over there. A little bit better on DK, but all those guys are still in the high fours. So I think we can really make that work, and I think we can extract a lot of different builds, a lot of different stacks as we go down 1 through 8 in this lineup, really, with Mazzara hitting 8 down there, even against a lefty. If we don't expect Boyd to be in the game very long because he gets beat up, we're going to see some bullpen at-bats against Mazzara, probably get a righty in there, so I like him. Don't love Danny Mendick, but he ends up popping into optimizers because he's the min price all the time.
Right.
So, control your exposures with him. But, 1 through 8 in that White Sox, killers.
Solid breakdown, man. Yeah, I bet in March, I bet the White Sox at like plus 400 to win the division. They got a little ways to go. Minnesota's looked good, but Lucas Giolito I didn't anticipate him struggling like he has. Thought Dylan Cease would take a step forward, and outside of that first start, he's been pretty good. But the real emphasis should be on the offense. Like they are really talented offensively. You just broke it all down right now, concisely as possible. There's no reason for me to expand upon it. It's really just a scary offense. Like I said, Terry, I can't stress it enough. They literally hit 4 home runs in a row yesterday. I don't care if it was the guy's debut. Like they hit 4 home runs in a row in a Major League Baseball game. That's what this team is capable of.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you see just guy after guy with ISO projections over 200 for the season, and guys who have done that before. It's not some crazy pie in the sky. It's Steamer's projection.
Encarnacion's batting 6th in this line.
And crazy up and coming rookie like Luis Roberto's all the way down at 7. I mean, the kid's been smoking the ball most of the year. So I just love the talent on this team. I think that was a sharp bet by you, by the way. And I like Cease too. I think he's a kid we're going to see a lot from as time goes on.
I think you're going to start. He's going to be one of those guys that once he figures it out is going to be really tough to hit. Last year he had that like 11 strikeout game where you saw what he worked with, but he couldn't really put the pieces together. Hopefully soon enough we'll start seeing that. Okay, Jeremiah asks, what do you think of the Mets in the top stack tool? Looking good. All right, let's pull it up. I'm going to refresh it, Jeremiah, to see if we've got anything going. While we're at it, if you hear us talk about the top pitcher tool, the top stack tool, ownership projections, all of that's available at awesemo.com. If you go to awesemo.com/join, you can see where all of it is available, from weekly subscriptions to Awesemo Plus All Access monthly. That's what I would suggest, because you can get everything from baseball to basketball. Football's coming up, hockey, MMA, NASCAR, awesome PGA content, literally everything. League of Legends, if they're still doing that with contests, we've got content. You name it. And all of the tools are developed by Alex Baker, Awesemo himself, #1 ranked DFS player in the world. So we're not just slapping his name on this. Like, he stands by this. He uses them to win money every day. And I think that's why a lot of people appreciate being with Awesemo, because not only that, but we take your questions in the premium Slack chat. We're happy to answer them. And we want to make your life easier playing DFS. We want you to win. So go to awesemo.com/join to check that out. If you haven't done so yet, scroll all the way to the bottom. You'll see these little tutorial videos on some of our most popular tools. We want you to know exactly what you're getting into before you dive right in. So from the top stack tools to the ownership to projections to our lineup cruncher tool that is awesome for single entry or 3 max players. And then we have the Fantasy Cruncher add-on as well. So check that out, awesemo.com/join, and be sure to enter the premium Slack chat. When you do, we'll be happy to show you around. All right, so where was I going? Mets. Okay, so Mets have. Oh, you're right, Jeremiah. They did. So 3% projected aggregate ownership on the Mets, 7% top stack probability. So that's a pretty big disparity there. Positive disparity, Terry.
Yeah, the Mets were a team that I wrote up in my Stack Slants column in the afternoon, which is the one where I kind of look for that exact kind of a spot where a team's getting a little bit ignored by the public, but they're getting a good mark from Alex in the top stacks tool.
Is that in front of or behind the paywall?
That one's in front of the paywall.
So you can check that out. Yeah, at awesemo.com, free content.
Yep, so hop in there. You can read up exactly what I think of all these guys, but to to put it in quick summary, I think they do a fantastic job of getting on base up top. Brandon Nimmo was a guy I didn't really respect coming into the year. I mentioned this on the early bird last night, and just looking at him a little bit more, I really like the on-base tool. He gets on base a fair amount of the time. He's leading off for this team, so sets the table really well. I mentioned McNeil earlier when we were talking Yamamoto, but he does the same thing and doesn't strike out nearly as much. So he's a terrific guy in the two-hole there. Third base and outfield eligibility on DK, only 2,800 on FanDuel, which is just killer. J.D. Davis, only 28 on FanDuel also. Just love the pricing on this team. Michael Conforto cleaning up is affordable on both sites. Pete Alonso all the way down at 6 could be a little bit sneaky tonight. So I think there's just a ton of quality in this Mets lineup. Dom Smith was a hitter that I called out in my column as a guy who's been showing us the upside that people thought was in that bat for a while coming into this year. He's finally really proving it and having a nice year, nice start to the season. So I think there's a lot of different things we can do. He's another guy with dual eligibility over there on DK. So yeah, that's a spot for me for sure.
Sure. And by the way, as you and I both discussed Yamamoto having strikeout upside, there's also a lot of potential that he gets absolutely rocked today, which is why if you're rostering Yamamoto, you're not putting him in 2 of your three max contests. This would be something where you want to be very careful about that. But so he's faced 14 lefties. I found this very interesting. He struck out 43% of them. So I don't know what would that be, like 6 of 14?
6,
I'm assuming.
Probably. Yeah.
Around there, right? Of all of the balls that have been hit, he's given up 100% hard contact, so according to FanGraphs. So he's either struck them out or he's given up hard contact. 50% hard contact to righties this season. Overall on the year, he's allowed like 5% soft contact, according to FanGraphs. Again, that is not very good. He's allowed 2 homers to lefties, 2 homers to righties. So I think you either get a good amount of strikeouts in this matchup or Yamamoto gets rocked. And if the Mets are coming in, like we both mentioned, and Jeremiah asked, with such low ownership, yeah, I'm certainly willing to jump on board with that.
Yeah,
what are you doing
very
with?
Good angle.
Sorry, what's that?
No, I was just very good angle into the slate.
Yeah, what are you doing with Atlanta? They've got a lot of ownership right now, second highest projected owned team. Top stack probability is much lower than that. Pretty much cut their ownership in half, and that's what their top stack chances are. But it is, it is a matchup that I can see why people would like them against Anibal Sanchez, especially after seeing those home run numbers. But top stack tool isn't particularly fond of them today. Where are you at on them?
Yeah, that's a surprise. I thought the Braves were going to be kind of, very highly ranked in the top stacks tool in the matchup against Anibal. I was seeing all the things that you mentioned there. I don't, think that the pricing is crazy, so that might be what's making them super popular. But I was expecting them to rank out higher. I am getting pretty good projections on them. Not the craziest home run marks. Nobody cracking 10 in the home run model, which is, kind of the indicator for an average chance versus a good chance for me. Which is a surprise. Anibal does give up the home run ball. Ugly start to his 2020. His fastball is down to 89 miles an hour. It was at 91, and he throws his changeup at 87. So there's almost no differential between his fastball and his changeup anymore. So anything that he does, it seems like he's getting by with smoke and mirrors. 13th percentage exit velo, 37th in hard hit, 8th percentile in barrels, 9th percentile in fastball velo, 3rd percentile in curveball spin. So it's all just flat stuff that kind of sits in the zone. I was planning on attacking this slate with some Braves. The popularity would definitely make me change those plans a little bit, but the pricing is just incredible. You can put this team together with a ton of White Sox lineups on FanDuel and probably on DK as well. As I was crunching my FanDuel stuff that I ended up canceling, they were my 4th highest owned stack. So they were pushed down a little bit just because of what I do with my distributions when they're that popular. But yeah, they were a team I was planning on getting to. I like them here, but I tend to defer to the boss man when we disagree. So if Alex is seeing something, then that would have an impact on my distributions for sure.
Yeah, in a vacuum, the Braves are arguably the best, like the team you're going to like the most. Like, let's say you didn't see ownership, you didn't see any of that stuff, and I asked you, what team do you really, really like? The Braves have to be in the top 3. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. As I was looking down the thing last night, just looking at my own projections for the column I read overnight, I was actually a little annoyed. EMAC beat me to both the Braves and the Twins last night. We usually race to get to each team first. So, yeah, I was planning on writing about them last night. I like it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. We also had a comment, not really a question, a comment though, that Travis d'Arnaud's price is super low on DraftKings and that he should be 100% owned. Well, you're never going to see 100% owned, but you know what else you almost never see, Terry? A catcher or any position player on DraftKings at almost 50%, but that's what you're getting with d'Arnaud. Usually pitchers are always at the top of the ownership. You're talking about 45% on d'Arnaud today at 2,500. It's interesting because, well, baseball is one of those sports where a ridiculously popular guy can just as easily go 0 for 4 no matter how good of a spot he's in, whether it's Mike Trout or whoever. But Travis d'Arnaud, definitely more than some of the best hitters in the league. He is very cheap though. So I'll pose it this way: is this a spot where you say, screw it, catcher always sucks, I'm just gonna bite the bullet and go with Travis d'Arnaud at $2,500 and I'm gonna get a ton of him, or I'm gonna change it up at catcher because a near 50% catcher that is a decent hitter but not spectacular by any stretch is not something that I want today on an 11-game slate. Which angle are you taking?
I think I would definitely lean into it more of the I'm going to build a Brave stack and leave him out of it and use that specific ownership to pivot around and use guys like Yasmani Grandal in that catcher spot.
You know what? I don't mean to interrupt, but you just inadvertently made a really good point. Well, I guess it wasn't inadvertent, but people might not have picked up on it. I'm just thinking about this now. I think we have to consider that one of the reasons Atlanta's aggregate ownership is so high is specifically because of d'Arnaud, and not just because they're all garnering a ton of ownership. So what you're saying right now could be really important with the way you're building Atlanta stacks. If you want to make sure, hey, I love this matchup, but I'm worried about the ownership, well, maybe you just boot d'Arnaud from there and you get real different real quick.
Yep. It's the easiest, quickest thing you can do to make this stack completely different than the way that half the field is building it, at least. And then based on which team you put it together with, which pitchers you put it together with, you can get very different very quickly, like you said. And you get great hitters. Marcell Ozuna, I'm probably not on the most recent update, but as of like 5:30 was at 9.5% over there. Adam Duvall, 8.6. I know he's not on the lefty-righty, but still he's a guy who can hit a home run against anybody. Markakis, I had hitting fifth lefty-righty, only 3,500 at like 1%. So, I mean, there are definitely options here that we can build with that are different than what the field's doing that I still like. Travis d'Arnaud's having a nice start to the year. There's no arguing with it, but he's Travis d'Arnaud. I mean, this is a guy who was 251, 312, 433 slash last year with 16 home runs. We know who this guy is. He's not Mike Trout. And even like you said, Mike Trout does his job successfully 30% of the time and is going to the Hall of Fame as a first ballot Hall of Fame.
Right.
Travis d'Arnaud isn't that guy. So I don't care that he's 2,500. Yeah, I would stick him in a couple just to have him in some stacks, but I would definitely limit that ownership. And you can weaponize that, like I was just saying, to get to a Yasmani Grandal where guys aren't going to. I know he's not in the lineup, but let's say Gary Sanchez, big-time catchers that other people aren't playing that have as good, if not better, projections and better upside than Travis d'Arnaud. So you're building better lineups while getting different with a good stack. That would be my approach to it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. Justin Wilson, thank you. Totally missed that. Let me go up. Sorry, the chat was moving quick earlier and I completely missed it. Slayer Aces, appreciate the super chat, man. Apologize for missing that earlier, but we got you. He says, do you find it necessary / favorable to include players from late games in your lineups in order to overtake lineups that finish early in contests? No, I don't see the need whatsoever. If the players are better that game and your projections and ownership and the tools that you're using tell you to play them or not to play them, then yeah, it's way different in like, and I think this question is probably more popular now than it would have been before COVID. Terry, it sounds crazy, but let me explain. With basketball, we've seen a lot of strategic moves to not include a ton of the early players because in those reseeding games, we were getting so much late breaking news with games spread out across the entire night, but it doesn't really apply to baseball here.
Yeah. I wouldn't make that decision for that reason. If you're getting good projections, if there are good matchups, like you said, in the late games, if they're good targets, yeah, load them up. But not because you think that the early games are going to be out ahead of you on the scoreboard. I mean, we've all had just as many late slate games that fall short and only score 50, 70 points on a night and don't come anywhere near cashing. So, yeah, there's nothing about it being a late game that is going to make it a more high-scoring game than an early game, regardless of how the calendar falls.
Right. Any other spots here where you look at a stack and just see a ton of opportunity there that might not be super popular? Well, before that, we got 8 minutes to go. Hey, hit that like button if you're still with us. It helps us out immensely, especially battling that YouTube algorithm. It helps us get out to more people, get more eyeballs on the site so we can keep doing this for free. So pop that thumbs up when you get a second. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell as well so you always know when new content is going to drop next, and we appreciate you for it. What about the Dodgers coming in with the highest ownership right now, around 16%? Their top stack chances are the highest as well, but not coming really close to their ownership.
Yeah, it's a great spot. I mean, Justin Dunn is a kid that we like, a high-end prospect, kid who's probably going to make a name for himself in the game, but he's another guy that I don't think he's quite there yet. So I think we can definitely target the Dodgers there. Just taking a look at Dunn here. So he went 6 innings for the first time his last time out. He's a 91-mile-an-hour fastball, his curveball slider. Not getting a ton of swing and miss so far, giving up a lot of hard contact so far. Just in his small sample, 15th percentile in exit velo allowed, 13th in hard hit, 25th percentile barrels, not getting his 8th percentile in whiff rate, 11th percentile in K rate. So not getting what you need from him yet. Going up against this Dodgers lineup, gigantic test for the kid. I don't want to be on his side while he's getting tested. I would rather find a way to roster some of those Dodgers. They're pricey on DraftKings. But there's some position flex in there that I like. You get Chris Taylor, shortstop outfield on the back end probably. Max Muncy, first base, second base. Bellinger, first base, outfield, obviously. And then you get into guys, you got Jock Peterson, who just is a destroyer of right-handed pitching. 117 of his 126 career home runs have come against righties. 2.62 ISO for the split, 1.29 career WRC plus, a 29% over league average WRC plus. He's only 2,600 on FanDuel. Once again, FanDuel's pricing is just flat broken. So you can do anything you want over there. But
so is FanDuel.
Yeah, that's true. Good one. Yeah. Hopefully they're working on the pricing while they're in there too. Oh my God. But yeah, I think we can definitely weaponize the Dodgers. And I think since we're looking for a couple other stacks, I don't think we talked about the other LA team. I think the Angels look pretty good here too.
Yeah, go straight in. Actually, before we do, just a couple of questions. I want to get this out of the way first. Yankees weather, is it fine? I haven't seen anything to suggest. So when it comes to weather, we all have the same information. There you go.
Looks okay.
Looks all right. There you go. What I'm seeing is possible light rain. My guess is they play through it. But I don't know. Like I said, I'm not a meteorologist. You're
it's been that kind of humid day.
Yeah, there you go. So Abreu or Encarnacion?
Flip a coin. I can pull it up and give you the exact projection in my home run if you give me a half second here. Let's see.
Sure. Yeah. While you do that, I'll start pulling a couple of these. Justin, yeah, FanDuel's been a problem all day long. Josh says you can have a $2,500 chalk catcher and get different elsewhere. Yeah, you can. But one of the instances when you're with a $2,500 chalk catcher is a 50% catcher, fading him makes a ton of sense in tournaments and not a lot of sense in cash. There's a very high likelihood that somebody like Travis d'Arnaud, or really most catchers, just don't give you close to what you need. And, you get away from 50%. It's going to serve you pretty well. You come up with that?
Yeah. So I think it's Edwin for me. I've got 14.32, a little higher projection on Edwin by like 1.5 fantasy point wise, and about a point on my home run model. So it's Edwin, and he's at a cheaper price.
Okay. Yeah. And like you were saying, you can't go wrong with either of those guys.
Right. Yeah. They're both killer options tonight.
Yeah. It's great plays. See if there's anything else in here. Big Dong says in the long run, you'll make way more money fading chalk in MLB. Yeah. If you're doing it the right way, for sure. Who are your Dong picks? Asks Jeremiah. So I'll go to you, Terry. Who do you have hitting? Who if you had to do 3 homer picks today, who would it be? You have a home run model that you're looking at?
3 of them. Wow. So I'll give one off the top was Travis Shaw. That was my official home run pick from the bottom of my nightly column there, and then when we flip over to the home run model here, we'll find out. So I am getting killer power marks on all the Blue Jays. We discussed how Alex Cobb is a little bit broken in that model, so I won't give you another Blue Jay. I'm not going to give you Mike Trout, even though he's absolutely breaking the model as well today. But I will give you, since we're going to talk Angels. Oh, is he not in the lineup? If he's in the lineup, I'm going to give you rookie Joe Adell.
All right, I like that.
On FanDuel, 2K on FanDuel, getting a nice mark on him on my home run model. Absolute destroyer of baseballs in the minor leagues so far. He's a kid you're going to know and love in the coming years. He's 250 ISO at pretty much every stop in the minors.
Love it.
Ton of power.
Yeah, when you start looking at some of these teams, you could pick quite a bit from the Yankees that you really like. The White Sox are another team that could just start raining in home runs today, raining down home runs. Sorry. The Atlanta Braves are another one. They might have added a couple strikeouts per night to the lineup, but they've also added pretty considerable power. There are a lot of, and this just speaks to what pitching looks like today, but Terry, there are a lot of really good stacks out there, and many of them going vastly overlooked because so many people are just scrambling to get to the ones that look better than that, even though the under-owned ones are really great too.
Definitely. Yeah, this is a great night for the top stacks tool. This is a night that I love whenever they come in and it's the same on the pitching side actually today. So it's a really great slate. Whenever I come in and there's not, three teams at the top that are all like 18, 20, and 22%, and then everybody else is just like garbage, little tiny numbers. I like when there's a nice meaty chunk in the middle there where it's a bunch of teams between like 8 and 6, 8 and 5% to the probability, because then you can really look for those ownership edges. And I think we've got a few of those today. So yeah, you just named some of those teams, and I think Boston's got a good shot with power today too against Monty.
Montgomery, sure. Yeah, let me put you on the spot. So I can't see. I don't remember. Oh, okay, here it is. Jerry says need an 8K pitcher. Shoot.
Jeez, I don't have the full list in front of me with DK pricing. Let me see if I can get it on. I do have it on our pitchers tool. Hold on. 8K pitcher on DK.
Yeah, Stripling's 79, Canning's 82, Gallen's 88.
Yeah, if we're calling 82 8K, that would probably be my guy, would be Canning. No argument with Stripling there. Those would probably be the guys. Maybe 7,700 Tukey we talked about a little bit, maybe a little bit sneaky. Better projected probability of being the top guy than he has of ownership. So that could be another spot.
He's definitely somebody to watch. All right, we got 30 seconds to go. If you're placing on DraftKings in a single entry lineup, Terry, we'll close out with this. 2 pitchers and 1 stack. Who are your 2 pitchers in a single entry tournament, and who is your stack?
The White Sox are my stack. Griffin Canning is a pitcher for me. Let me look for a cheaper guy. Yeesh. I'll punt to you for SP2. I'm going Canning. Can you pick the SP2 for me?
I'm going back to Tukey, baby. If we're trying to be different, maybe we'll go there. But I think Gallen would be one. Who was your first one? Did you say Gallen?
I said Canning, but I can definitely I can get behind Gallen as well.
I think Stripling does a very good job of run prevention today in this spot and gets enough strikeouts, at least a handful of strikeouts. And while I think some of these guys are overpriced, I'm not really worried about him coming in sub 8K on DraftKings. That'll do it for us, man. Our first show together in the book. Solid work, man. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks as always for hanging out. We'll be back with you tomorrow, MLB Live Before Lock. But not only that, you can stick around all day long and get DFS content right here on youtube.com/Awesemo. 10 a.m. NBA Strategy Show, myself and Sal Vetri, Josh and Jake Hari, MLB Strategy Show immediately after that. Then Jake's taking his talents to the NHL world, doing that strategy show. NBA Live Before Lock, MLB Live Before Lock, PGA Strategy Show, and then the MLB Early Bird to close everything out with EMAC and your man here, Terry McBride. Thanks for hanging out with us. As always, hit that thumbs up on your way out. Good luck tonight. We'll catch you back here tomorrow on Live Before Lock.